Welcome to Sewer Mutant, the podcast that excavates subterranean comic book treasures both old and new. I'm your guide Klintron, and that opening music was by Crudler. This is our maiden voyage, so please bear with me as we work out the kinks in the recording and production process. Now, on with the show. I'm joined by Barbatus and Meanboss, the team behind multiple digital comics projects, including Sad Sack, pooppix at yahoo.com, and most recently, Sortie. Their work can be incredibly disturbing. Every issue has a laundry list of content warnings ranging from explicit sexual content to decomposing human bodies. So, listener, be warned, this episode will probably be explicit. But I also want to say that they're about more than just shock value, and we'll be delving into the meanings behind all of this work shortly. So, welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, nice to be here.
Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Before we dive into your work, I was hoping maybe we could just talk a little bit about. I'm always interested in how people got into comics as a medium and what made them. Do you remember like the first comics that you read, either as kids or as even as adults, if it was more recent?
God, I think that honestly, my first comics were probably just some manga crap. Not saying that manga in general is crap, but when you're young, you just read anything that's a little bit more shocking. I think the one that really stuck with me when I was younger was Hellsing, which I think a lot of people my age have had a little Hellsing phase, and it's like baby's first gore manga. It's just very violent. The art is it gets good. It doesn't start good, but it gets there eventually. And after that, well, I definitely went looking for more like gory and violent stuff. Not for any particular reason, I guess just because, it's shocking, so you want to see more of it. I wasn't like a psychotic kid or anything like that. And after that, honestly, my interest in comics dropped a lot. It turned more towards films and series and stuff. But the interest in art was always there. Though I only became interested in making comics, I think, uh, around the time where I met Nicholas online.
Okay.
And that's kind of it.
And me, kind of like just as a note on Helsing, I feel like half the charm of Helsing is just how busted the dude's art starts, and then like he doesn't care that his art is busted, and he just keeps going for it. And for me personally, like I definitely have an artistic ceiling that I hit, and I'm like, what do I do with this? I have stories I want to tell and comics I want to do, and my art's not up to snuff. And then I read some of Helsing, and I'm like, this dude doesn't give a shit. Okay, fuck it. I won't give a shit. I'll just do my thing. But to get to the question, I first like real comic I read because I wasn't too interested in like DC and Marvel and stuff because it didn't grab me. Like I didn't care too much for superhero stuff, so I'm like, eh. Was I got gifted a copy of Battle Royale back in high school. I think I was in like sophomore year by one of my friends who said like, you like that horror stuff, read this. And the comic version of Battle Royale is just grotesque. It's disgusting. The story sucks, but you're looking at the art, you're like, oh my god, like Battle Royale is about like just as nasty as anything you'll find in Sad Sack, if not like in some parts, like I think a little more so. So reading this, like, as like a 14, 15-year old, I'm like, I've never seen anything like this. Where can I find more? So that kind of led me down the rabbit hole to like, more gore comics and things like that. And that was my start.
Cool. Yeah. So, how did the two of you meet, and what made you decide to do a comic together?
Oh god. So
Oh
back in the
God.
Tumblr days, back when Tumblr had people in it, before they just banned all the porn off of it and everybody migrated to Twitter and stuff. Now I don't even know what's going on in Tumblr. I hear that it's a lot of Nazi shit going on, like white nationalist stuff going on
Yeah,
there. I'm not sure.
it's like mad white supremacist shit going on Tumblr
Yeah,
right now.
and a
It's
couple
awful
of fine people, I'm sure. But
here and there.
anyways, yeah. We were real fans of this game franchise Outlast by Red Barrels.
Outlast. Oh,
Yes,
beautiful,
which is
beautiful little
just
game.
I mean, obviously we have like Mortal Kombat and stuff. Violence in games is nothing new, but I think Outlast broke some, crossed some lines there in the more modern video game where everything's a little bit more high resolution, everything's a little bit more detailed, and just the framing that they put on everything. You know, Mortal Kombat is supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be shocking. You know, you rip a guy's spine off and you're supposed to go like, whoa, shit, cool.
Right.
Outlast is really supposed to make your stomach turn and to make you terrified to be where you want to be. And it's really trying to show the terrible things that you're seeing, the mangled corpses, the gore, the violence, as very scary, as because you are this protagonist who has no weapons. Your only option is to run away and hide. And
oh,
sorry,
sorry,
go on.
just to interject on that point, like another thing that like Outlast was really like, I think really hit home for a lot of people and was something really crazy, was that this is the first time, I think, you know, in kind of like a AAA game format where you, the player, ostensibly a dude, is going to be put in a situation where you are completely helpless, and the whole sexual violence and shit, it's not played for jokes, it's not played for laughs, it's dead serious. You can't do anything to stop it. And I think, like, you know, if you watch any like Let's Plays and shit of like dudes playing Outlast, like it's kind of the motions and like the feelings that they go through just to watch that. It's just like, I have not been through this before in a games situation. So that I kind of like found that I'm like, I love this. This is great. I want more of this. I assume RJ was the same situation. And
Yeah, it was really interesting, and we were both artists already. We just did it as a hobby. I did a little bit for work, but just like still mostly casually.
yeah,
And we liked each other's art. We kind of struck up conversation here and there. We actually met a while before we became friends. I would say a solid year or more before we became friends.
I think so. Like, because we were kind of like the only people doing like really fucked up art about this. So we kind of like spotted each other like, oh, hey, okay, we got like similar mindsets. And then, you know, obviously in like gore art and horror art, you kind of have to suss out if the person is a maniac or not a little bit. There's some people out there. And then, you know, we kind of suss out like, oh, okay, you're just like a regular person who just like likes to draw goofy stuff on the internet. Okay. And then life goes on and shit. And then I think, like you said, RJ, like a year later, we kind of reconnected like, oh, you're still around and still doing crazy stuff. Hey, you know, we struck up from there. And the comic happened completely by accident. What had happened? What year was it? It was 2018. Trump was in office, and the Nazi Tiki Torch rally had happened. I think either the year before or like a couple months before. And like, I'm Jewish, so I was pissed, and I'm gay, so I was pissed. And I'm like, I'm fucking pissed off, and you know, I can't do anything about it because like, what the fuck is one dude gonna do? So I'm like, I'm gonna draw this nasty little fucking thing where he's just fucking killing Nazi. I don't care, you know. And then I showed it to RJ and a couple other friends, just like, check out what I'm fucking doing, and literally just for laughs and shit. And they're like, hey, and you know, then I got back to work, like doing more, and I kind of just like did it when I'd get home from work as like a funny thing. And I think I was like, I kept going. I think I was like 80, 90 pages in when I kind of realized like, I'm gonna just fucking do this whole thing. I don't know how long it's gonna be, but it's gonna be long. And then out of the clear blue sky, RJ dropped into my my DMs and he's like, "Hey, I inked pages 1 and 2," and I'm like, "Excuse me?" He just surprised me with that. I had no idea.
Yeah, from that point on, we just started talking about like, hey, let's finish this and put it online for a little bit of a paywall. A lot of people already followed our art and stuff and just liked what we did. So we figured, hey, it's a cool way to like make a little money because Nicholas had put work into it. I was putting work into it.
Yeah,
And
and
yeah.
and paywall especially because it's like, you know, I was reading Battle
Oh,
Royale when I was like
yeah.
14, so it's like, look, I get it. Kids will look, but I would really like to make as many roadblocks as possible so that kids can't look at this. So let's just put it up behind a paywall so that there's like, you'd have to go so fucking far to look at this if you're not supposed to be looking at
Yeah,
this.
you,
Because then
you
at
gotta
that point,
steal your
Yeah.
dad's credit card if you want to look at this. And then from the, it's not our problem anymore. You stole your dad's credit card, okay? You deal with that with them.
if you
Yeah.
went this far, I'm not pleased, but fine, whatever. I don't want to know. But ideally, no kids reading this. And next thing we know, it's like we got some pretty good response out of that. It's like, I guess we should keep going. So that was,
Right. So when it started, it was you weren't necessarily planning on doing it as a series, like doing a second issue. It was like just going to be a one and done with the first character, the Nazi that gets murdered. Is that right?
Yeah, I was just gonna do the one because I'm like, all right, fuck it, and then I'll go draw something else. And then, it just prelim wise, it got so long, and I was spending just, I'm doing roughs, so these don't take me too long, but they take a fair bit of time. And I'm doing so many roughs and spending so much time with these characters that eventually I start thinking to myself, like, what the fuck is wrong with these dudes? What is their problem that they would do this? So now it's like, well, this first one kind of focused on, Jake, our glasses dude. So what if I did another one and we just focused on like another dude and he was like the ringleader. And then it's like, oh, what if the whole thing of everybody wearing similar outfits is like their weird MO? Like, oh, we all have to dress to match or whatever. So I'll just switch their outfits a little bit. And I ran it by RJ, like, do you want to do more after this? Can we just keep going? So yeah.
Yeah, so my favorite part of that whole series is just like the little short bits when they're interacting with each other when they're not doing murder, when they're just like in the first issue afterwards they start talking like where they're gonna go eat afterwards, and then just like this, like just all that, just the little human interactions that they have.
Yeah, the little moments of humanity inserted in there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's sort of, yeah, I wrote about this in the article where it's sort of the flip of how you often see horror done, where like there's short bursts of violence that that are meant to shock you, but the rest of it is about developing the characters so that you care when the violence happens. And this is sort of the opposite, where you only get these short bursts of humanity as like this, like a brief like break from hundreds of pages of something horrible happening. And it works surprisingly well though for building the characters. It's I guess because it's like you don't get a whole lot, so like what you get, I don't know, maybe I just felt like I latched onto it more than I might have otherwise.
No, I feel like that might be the effect that happened. I think a lot of people were reading it for the shocking content and they were enjoying all the violence and stuff. But if a lot of them really grabbed onto the actual personality of the characters and these demonstrations of humanity, and when you talk to people who read the series, they really focus on these little things about the characters. There's not that much conversation about the horrible shit that happens. Of course, there's acknowledgement of it, but everybody's really interested in what happens behind the scenes with them, where they came from and what they like to do, and how their relationship with one another developed outside of what we see in the comics. Yeah. So I think that happens a lot. I don't think you're alone there.
Yeah, I feel like just from writer's perspective, like there is no answer to what's wrong with them unless we get a look at like the people that they are, because everyone's got shit and skeletons in their closet and stuff, but any horrendous person that you meet is going to be a complete doll to someone you don't know, and that's just how people are. Like you're going to have like this person and he's horrible and he like beats his dog or whatever, and then he goes out to like the guy where he gets his newspaper from and his coffee from, and he's such a gentleman. So if you ask the guy who sells the newspapers and the coffee, like, what's this dude like? He'd tell you, oh, he's fine. He's perfectly polite. He always makes nice conversation. I'm more interested in kind of the wholeness of what goes into people. I don't think people are like 100% good or 100% evil. I think there's really fucked up shades to everybody that you meet. I kind of took it a bit from, again, like Battle Royale, where we spent so much time with the characters, and I don't know how effective it was, because again, it's like writing-wise, it's not that good, but we still spent a lot of time with, I think, about like 30 characters, and you knew like most of them were going to be dead by the end of this, so you're just sitting there like, oh my god, And also, what stuck with me forever, there's this one scene in one of the August Underground films by Fred Vogel, who tends to have us spend a lot of time with his characters outside of their stupid murder sprees. But there's this one really awful scene in the third one where it's like, I don't know if I should like get into it too much. It's like, it's pretty grotesque, but we have this really clear moment of humanity on top of this gross murder happening. And the juxtaposition of the two like makes you nauseous. It's horrible. So I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. That's great. That's how I want to write.
Cool. Yeah. And I mean, and speaking of that, no one's 100% good or bad. I mean, that was, it was sort of like, as I understand it, like it kind of started out as like your own sort of fantasy of like let's kill Nazis or something, like, because they're obviously bad. But then,
Oh, 100%.
but
100%. Call it what it is.
yeah, but then I mean the story really goes in a different direction from there, where we do start to find that these characters who maybe started out as, you know, I don't know, you could almost think of them as like grosser, rapey versions of the Punisher or something, go off in this, like, this other direction entirely. So can you talk, I don't know, a little bit about that decision? Or
I don't know. I think like early on, like RJ, you and me, like we didn't really have like too much of a sense of like, because I did no character work before they showed up in the panel. Like,
Oh yeah.
They did not exist until I was like, okay, so for this panel, I need a big dude. So I just drew like a shape of a big dude. I'm like, a big dude's here now. Like they didn't have names until someone said their name. And I'm like, what name is good? What movie did I just see? Oh, I'm thinking about Anne Bancroft's Fatso. And there's a character named Sal who like dies early on, and he's this big dude who like played the tuba and shit. So I'll take that name because I like Anne Bancroft or whatever. So like a lot of little things like that. And then eventually what happened is that like the mountain of individual characteristics became so much that like I think halfway through part 1 even they start becoming a little more distinct from one another, where I'm like, oh, well, maybe these two are dating because it'd be interesting. And then I'm like, oh, well, if they're dating, you know, how does that shake out with like their interactions? And then this guy, I like forgot to draw him in like a bunch of panels. And I'm like, oh, so maybe that means he was like in the background or something. Like he was hiding. You know, he was just sitting there. So that became a character like attribute or something like that. So they got more so like when RJ got to draw them, like when RJ was doing the inks, he like really brought out much more individuality than like my thumb looking roughs. So
Yeah, and even then you can see how the character's design changes a little bit, especially from the first book and onwards. They are really fleshed out, I guess, by like, I would say the third. But at first we had no expectation for these characters and how they were going to develop as people. So I just figured like, okay, this one's old, this one's big, this one's a little crawling, a little gross rat. This guy has glasses, and that was the extent of their personality, even, and whatever else Nick did to them.
it was like I before Sads, I have like a fucking compendium of comics that I need to get to with complete show Bibles. Like they're done. And what would happen is that I would complete the show Bible, which would be like this big. I have like physical copies of them in like my drawer over there. And I'd get intimidated by the scale of the project and be like, I can't fucking do this. And then I'd start doing another show Bible for something completely different. So by the time I hit Sads, I think I had like 8 comics that I still need to do that I'm like, it's too big. I can't do it. Where do I start? I don't know. So by the time I hit Sads, I'm like, I'm not going to do any pre-development for this. I'm just going to go and I'm going to trust myself to weave without notice that I'm weaving. And that's what happened. Like it had just become such like habit almost to kind of do that kind of story weaving.
It's really amazing how that did work out, because by the end, we realized how many teams, how many
recurring
semiotics
stuff,
we had inserted in there that you can kind of reread the comics after you finish them and grab onto them. Like, oh, this kind of foreshadows this, and this kind of leads to that. And this some things we planned, obviously, but a couple of little things we didn't, and we were impressed about it, because I would come to Nicholas and be like, holy shit, you put this like all the way here in the beginning. That kind of
I'd be like, I guess I did.
Yeah, he'd be kind of like, I did? I don't remember that. And it's just funny how that worked out. The characters very much developed themselves in a way.
We just left them alone to do their own thing, and they just became people, kind of on their own a little bit. I take no credit.
Yeah, so like you said, you put it online, put it behind a paywall, and lo and behold, people paid for it. Yeah, I mean, you're working, to my mind at least, like so far outside of like the comics mainstream or like the webtoon mainstream, but you've still managed to build something of an audience. I'm wondering, like, how did you go about promoting it, like getting the word out?
Oh God, I don't know.
So much of he's being modest. So much of that is Nicholas. Nicholas has done an incredible job of like reaching out and boosting up the comic, and putting it
Ah,
in other websites and like just selling it, like telling people what it is about and reaching out, sending emails, giving people like free copies here and there if they might like enjoy it, might feel like reviewing it. But we just kind of figure like we have a lot of people who follow us who like this stuff already, and I guess they just talked about it.
there's an audience that exists for this stuff, and it's an overlooked audience, but there's an audience in like not just the gay community, but like there is an audience for this stuff, and they're a very active audience, and they make their own stuff all the time. Like we know a bunch, like they're just
Oh yeah.
doing their thing online, minding their business, and then logging off and going to work or walking their dog or just living their life like normal people. So it's like we all right, fine. I did do a little legwork. I'll say that because RJ, you were working so hard on these inks. They looked so good. I'm like, let me take the responsibility of any promotion onto me because you are
And also,
busting
I
ass
just
so
don't
hard on
have the
these
brain
inks.
for that. I just we draw this like I'm kind of like I'm the drummer of this band. Okay, I just like to be in the back and just doing some of the arm work,
You're the
and
rhythm
then I go
guitarist.
to sleep because I'm so tired from drumming all night. But you can be the face of the thing. You can like reach out to the people. I'm just here doing the work, and then I want to go to sleep. That's kind of how we figure things.
I kind of figured that it's like by the time you get to the inks, my roughs are done. So I'm just like, I kind of figured like I'm just sitting here and you're working so hard. I feel like an asshole. So it's like, let me go send this around. So it was a lot of like bothering publishers who said absolutely not, but really exciting. A lot of the rejection letters we got back are like from a bunch of publishers. We've had this more than once where a publisher will politely get back to us and say absolutely not, but we've heard of you.
Oh
We've
yeah.
we've heard of this. Like we can't take this, but you're going to find someone who takes this and we've heard of this. Like so you're getting talked about. So I guess from
Nice,
just
nice.
bothering enough people.
Wow, yeah. Well, and oh, that reminds me, you got kicked off of Lulu.
We
Did
got
you
kicked
not?
off. Yes, we
Uh,
did.
That was our fault. We saw it coming. We thought we could be sneaky about it, because most places you just basically assume that they are not gonna let something like that slide, especially in a publishing thing, a self-publishing thing, because other people have to publish it and have to put this book together. Other people have to look at it,
Someone's
and
gonna look down,
yeah,
be like, "Wait a minute."
yeah,
I think
and
what happened that was my fault because I pushed for like Amazon publication through Lulu also because Lulu like stuck around for like a month and I'm looking both ways like okay I think we're good I'm gonna push this a little harder so it's on Amazon now and then I think somebody at Amazon was like I don't think so they just like we didn't even get an email the store was just gone like wiped they're like
oh,
get the fuck out of here
yeah, it was unfortunate, but it was good while it lasted, I guess.
like the one or
But
2 months it was
but
alive
we
we saw
saw
it
it
coming
coming.
we
Yeah,
saw it we
we
yeah.
knew
knew
it's
that was gonna
okay
happen.
it
Yeah.
was a matter of time.
Okay. It's just sort of funny when people talk about like cancel culture or whatever, but then they're like, if their special is still on Netflix, and then like, but you
No,
guys
that
are
was
out there like you
definitely
guys can get
that was
kicked off of
definitely
like a pretty liberal platform,
Is it?
like in terms of what they'll take. I mean,
Oh, oh.
We
To
get it.
be
It's
honest,
okay.
we didn't know much about Lulu. We were just going for anywhere that would take us, you know.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, so we didn't look too much into it. We were just like, I think it's fine here. Let's put it out here so people can buy it if they want.
Hmm.
And we sold,
Let's
a
make it
couple of copies.
let's make it dirt cheap so people can like grab a few before they take us offline because I have a feeling
Yeah,
so it was
because
dirt cheap.
we weren't making great money from this.
No,
We just
Hmm.
wanted like people to have the physical copies, and we wanted the physical copies as well for ourselves.
just to hold
So
and look at, and be like, wow, I wrote this.
yeah, sick.
Wow,
Yeah.
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
The funniest thing happened with regards to like self-publishing, like. So I put this up on like a couple things. We have Itch.io, we got Gumroad, and then we have like basically the Japanese Itch.io, which is this place called Booth, which like I don't speak the language anymore, but I remember enough that if you put me in front of a dictionary, I can figure it out. And I found this other sort of Japanese kind of like, self-publication place. I forget what it's called. And I'm like, oh, I'll put it through here too, because they do hard copies over there. So we won't be able to get any, but hard copies existing somewhere would be really cool. So I had to send it to like review for them to review. and this place publishes some fucked up shit. Like this
Oh yeah.
place publishes some like lolly scat inferno barbecue number 78. Like I'm like, that's gross, but they'll take me. And we got like the most scolding email back from these fucking people who are like, this is really horrible what you're trying to put out and blah blah blah, and we can't how dare you put this for publication. I'm like, wow, you guys putting like, you
Yeah,
got, really, you're gonna say that to me with the stuff that you got up? Come on.
and I think that's a situation where it was very clear to us, especially because it was a Japanese-based
Right.
operation going on, that like Nicholas not kidding, the stuff that they publish on their website, it is very violent. It is I would say
Outrageous.
worse than what we do.
Significantly worse.
Yeah, you know how like hentai and stuff sometimes is they have a lot of stuff on the younger side sometimes, and they surely had a
Yeah,
lot of that over there.
they had
This
a
was
lot of
a
that.
Yeah, this was a situation where it was very clear where it was because it's gay shit. So
Because it's
we'll
gay
take
shit,
violence, we'll take sex, we'll take rape, but not the gay shit. So
not the
get
gay
out of
shit.
here.
No, I
Yeah.
don't think so. Get out of here.
Yeah. So, but moving on. So after Sad Sack, you guys did pooppix at yahoo.com, which was that was a bit of a detour because it sounds like it's going to be more of the same, pretty much. But it's actually like this like really
Was it?
heartwarming thing. I think I called it like the Ted Lasso of the comics underground. So, where did the idea to do that come from?
I'd had this idea. It was in like the comics bank, like of finished stuff from like 2011 that I never touched, and it just made me laugh because you know what it is. You know when you like go online and you look up like really 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 niche stuff, like you go looking into like I don't know, like pottery specifically made that look like candy bars, and you can go into this subculture online of pottery that looks like candy bars, and you will find a subculture of people. You will find like drama within that community. Like you'll find some people who are really hardcore about this incredibly niche topic that nobody else cares about. And I love that. That's why I love the internet. That you just find these niche people. So I thought like there's probably also a like a community of people that take photos of their dumps and share them, and it's not a sexual thing. It's just like a show. They just show it off for no reason. And I love that. And I'm like, what would a guy who was like part of that be like? And that was the thinking.
Did you do any research? I mean, so I should also say for listeners that this comic has no actual pictures of poop in it,
None.
which is
There's
part of
more
what's
poop
fun
in
about
Sad
it. Yeah,
Sack than in pooppix. Pooppix,
Yeah.
we did some strategic like bubble placement. We avoided it by all means. There was no poop here.
yeah. I don't even think. Do you even show like the poop emoji or anything, or is it?
Yeah, we show the
Yes.
poop emoji,
Yes.
but
Okay.
that's it. That's
Okay. All right. Yeah, but yeah. So I mean, it kind of reminds me of, I guess, how you guys met, like just doing fan art of
That's
something
true.
really niche, and so I guess.
Yeah, totally. I think that like, genuine, I think online's a little fucked, but I also think that like, you can make genuine human connections over the internet if everyone just kind of like puts all their cards on the table and everything. And it's like, okay, so outside of this interest, who are you? Because a lot of people online tend to get stuck with the relationship or friendship or what have you revolving around the interest, and that becomes kind of the cornerstone of the relationship. But if you could put that down and say, okay, so we both like Steve Vai or whatever on this Steve Vai message board, what else do you like? Like, who are you? Do you have pets? Like, what's your day to day? What's your favorite food? That kind of thing. Like, do we actually get along outside of this interest? So it was a little exploration of that, of just like, being an older millennial growing up on the internet and everything, thinking about weird people, thinking about all the weird people I've met.
Yeah, and besides that, pooppix also works a little bit like a response to Sad Sack in a way. We've talked
Yeah,
about this.
yeah,
There's a lot in Sad Sack about just people. I mean, this is no secret or a surprise. It's about people who can't deal with their problems and their emotions, and we just took that to an absolute extreme, and we kind of see these characters unravel as they figure out that what they are doing is causing no. It's not giving them any kind of closure that they look for. and in pooppix, it's kind of a healthier way that the characters are dealing with the same issue. Like much
Sorry.
healthier. I mean, there's poop involved, but they're not.
Yeah, they're not
yeah.
hurting anybody.
Yeah, they're
No,
not
they're
hurting
just-
anybody. Yeah.
They're just
Yeah.
doing their thing. Like,
Yeah.
okay, hey, I think it's weird, but hey, if that's your thing, yeah, RJ is absolutely correct. It's almost like a response to Sad Sack in a way where it's like, okay, here's people who also have problems because these two characters, Colin and Rowan, as they discussed, they obviously have some pretty serious skeletons in their closet, but here's how they've dealt with it, not just through taking pictures of their dumps or whatever, but also like maybe this person's become really shy, or maybe this other person is like, you know what, life's too short, fuck it, I'm just gonna put myself out there, that's how I live, and coming in this chat room makes me laugh, and that's why I do it. So thinking more about the humanity of people. Also, just as a note, I love when either of you have to say the name of this stupid comic. It makes me like. And now for this next comic that they've done, it's called pooppix at Yahoo. That's also part of the delight for me, just the stupid name.
Coming up next on NPR, it's pooppix at yahoo.com.
It was Gmail for a while, but I thought Yahoo was funnier. Like they couldn't get the Gmail.
No. Here's
Yeah,
what
it's-
actually happened. You really wanted to actually have the email
I did.
address, but it was taken. It was taken on Gmail. So we had to change it to Yahoo because that's where it was available.
Here's my question: Who the fuck has that email on Gmail?
Who has
now?
that? We just want to talk.
Yeah.
We just want to talk. Yeah.
I feel like Yahoo is a more appropriate somehow. Like it just somehow
That is
works.
true.
Like works
Yeah.
better. Like
Yeah.
that's where it would be for. Like it's like some old Yahoo group, like the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like this is like it's been around for a long time, and so they're still
Yeah, you're
on.
right.
It just has that feel to it.
We got to do. Sorry to interject, but just as a note, we have a sequel to that one coming up. That like I fucked up on some of the roughs, and I don't like how it ends, so I have to redo it. But it's called like pooppix 2. Sorry, we got locked out of our account mods, so they had to remake the email.
That was the first draft, and we just went with it. Like,
It's a good draft. We got it.
This series is very loosey-goosey, I guess.
So yeah, your newest thing is Sortie, and so a sequel to Sad Sack. I wasn't sure if it was going to be a spiritual sequel, but I hope it's not a spoiler to say it's an actual sequel.
No, totally.
Why did you decide to pick up Sad Sack and keep going?
Oh boy, so after
just going forward, I think we should also say that like this is going to be spoilers for the end of Sad Sack going forward, because there's no way to talk about Sortie without talking about the end of Sad Sack. So just
I think we can get around it, because after we finished Sad Sack, you can kind of catch a arch that's going on with each character. Obviously for most of them it's limited to each of their individual chapters, but for example, with Jake, it kind of spans through the entirety of the series and just ends when the series ends, which makes sense because it began with him, and the whole idea was kind of his. Yeah. But anyways, we kind of noticed that with Salvatore, he was not only from the audience did he get the most, I guess, sympathetic response, but in the way that we actually presented his story, he felt almost more justifiable than Jake's. And
yes,
there was just a lot of love for Salvatore, and we also felt like we could have wrapped his story up better and just done more with the character, because his whole thing is being very quiet, being very withdrawn. While everybody just talks off their ass in each of their chapters, Salvatore just kind of almost lets the other guys lead him until he takes things into his own hands. And we just felt like we left a lot on the table, and we just kind of wanted to go back to that. It was me who kind of pitched this very hard for Nicholas, because I really like the character, so I'm very glad that he decided to do something with it. And of course, when it comes to sequels, especially for something like Sad Sack, there's a big risk of it just not being good and just feeling like you're just kicking a dead horse. But in this case, I really feel like Sortie added a lot to this series, and I'm very excited to get to it and share with other people and see what the response is.
Yeah.
And so, do you think from when I just read the first chapter, it seemed like somebody could just jump in and start actually with Sortie without reading Sad Sack? But is it going to be as it goes on? Do you think that's possible, or do people need to start at Sad Sack, or can they jump on later?
That's tough because I say this to like readers who we have back and forth with sometimes, that it's like it's hard to kind of judge Sortie just because like RJ and I have been so on top of it since like 2019. I want to say we've been on top of this, so we're so close up to it that it's hard to like kind of step back and get the bigger picture. But I think honestly, especially later on, as more factors come into play, it becomes kind of impossible to read or like at least make sense of the information you're being given without having the context of Sad Sack, and especially like knowing what the hell's happening, like to begin with, like how we got here. So
I would be really curious to hear the experience later on with it when it's all released. If someone read Sortie first and Sad Sack later, I feel like that could work. I feel like instead of just a direct sequel, it's just these two stories where you need the context of the other one to make full sense of what's going on. I'm not
Maybe
sure
so.
if that would work, but I would be interested to hear that from someone who just jumped on Sortie and then later read Sad Sack, like kind of like a prequel.
Yeah, that's probably going to happen too. That's interesting. I never considered that, so I am interested in hearing like what that experience is like of like going into Sortie first, which is like very weird, and then going back to Sad Sack, which is more just like a very direct 1 act, 2 act, 3 act, etc. play.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then this question will be a little bit will be a little spoilerish, I think. But will we be seeing other characters besides Sal from Sad Sack showing up in Sortie, or is this Sal's story? And you don't have to answer it. You can just say like, wait and see. But
maybe here and there in some form. Here and
there. A lot of weird stuff happens in Sortie. Like even if we said yes, that doesn't tell you much, to be honest. Like
kinda.
Yeah.
I could say that like if I had to, because I also am a big film head, but if I had to like make comparisons just for what to expect, if we look at Sad Sack in the context of, let's say, David Lynch's filmography, Sad Sack is the Blue Velvet and Sortie is the Lost Highway. Just for, just so you kind of have a better expectation of what's coming.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's that sets my expectations for sure. Cool. Well, that was lots of the questions about your work. So I was going to ask about if there are any other comics that have been inspiring you lately. But I guess before we do that, is there anything else you wanted to say about Sortie or the other stuff that you've been doing, or plug anything that's coming up?
We got some potentially big news coming down the pipes that I think we have to sit on for now. So I think we'll sit on that for now.
Yeah, but just be on the lookout, I guess.
Be on the lookout. There's some nonsense coming. I know, RJ, I'll let you talk about commissions after, but I'm actually, plug your own stuff. But I'm actually putting up the I'm going back to one of my old 2011 stories and being like, fuck it, I have like 2,000 pages of roughs under my belt, so let's just do this. So I'm taking one of my really, really big, outlandish ones from back then, and I'm actually doing it now. It's called Lovos 4017, and it is, how do I say this? It's cyberpunk by me who does not like what cyberpunk turned into. And it's some stupid robot nonsense. So if you like weird sci-fi and shit, and obviously more gore and stuff, you can check that out. I got like a website up somewhere. I think it's like lovos4017.thecomic.com. I'll have to shoot you a link. But that's what I'm doing. Yeah. RJ?
Oh yeah, I guess to boost my own stuff for a second. I do commission work between comics. It's kind of a long queue, so if you're interested, please go to my Twitter. It's just Meanboss Art. Just search that up on Twitter and you'll see my links for everything. But I usually just take messages on there, so if you are interested in getting art from me, you can just shoot me a message and we can talk about it. And the queue is quite long, so the sooner that you get to me, the sooner you're going to get your stuff done. Right now, if you contact me, you're going to get something around early 2022. But yeah, if you want some art that kind of reminds you of Sad Sack, if you like that style, if you like the style of Sortie, you can get that. You can get for your comics, your characters, I don't know, an album cover, whatever you're interested in. So please, by all means, just
RJ,
contact me.
RJ's fucking dope. Hit him up.
Nice, nice. So I thought maybe we could just close out with if I'm talking about any comics you've been reading or that have been inspiring you lately.
I've
God,
been rereading. Oops, sorry. Go on.
okay, me first. Like I said before, I am shamefully not a big comic reader, but I had after Sad Sack, I was feeling a little bit stuck in my style. I felt like I could develop more, but I didn't know which direction to go, so I started doing a little bit of my own research. So I haven't necessarily been reading them, but I have been looking at a lot of the works by Jason Shawn Alexander. He did a lot of Batman stuff. Amazing artist, absolutely insane person. His art is like he does a fairly realistic style, but with a very organic look to it, and he pushes perspective and angles and stuff in such a interesting way. Even though it's so grounded on realism, like the faces that he does and the all the rendering. He did also Empty Zone and Philadelphia. He did the inks for both. I think he did write Empty Zone as well. Beautiful art. I have to actually sit down with his comics for a while and actually read the stories, because I think that's how you absorb the art the most, when you have to also read the context that goes around it. But I've just been looking at that a bit and just studying how he does to bring your attention to where he wants you to look with all the black work that he does. That's why I was kind of drawn to him, because he does a similar style where it's just a lot of black, a lot of pure black rendering, and it's just amazing, honestly. And also, Sean Murphy, he also did a lot of Batman stuff. And Punk Rock Jesus, I'm sure everybody has heard about that one. Also very ink heavy, not as realistic, but a very cool style, very stylistic, still kind of grounded on realism, but very detailed. Uh, he also did, I think, one of the arcs of American Vampire. Survival of the Fittest. That's the name of that one. Also amazing artist. His stuff I have actually sat down and read. So I've been kind of looking at that and just studying what they do and trying to learn from the masters, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I've been kind of going over my old stuff, especially like doing what I'm working on now with all like the cyberpunk shit. I've been like revisiting a lot of older comics. One thing I reread, I think once every 6 months, is the Ichi the Killer comic by Hideo Yamamoto, which is just so fabulous and such a fun read. I'm trying to learn a lot more about like motion and like, panel direction and stuff, and, word bubble placement and stuff. And Ichi the Killer is just fantastic, especially because the dude's art, it starts off like it's good. It's okay, it's solid, it's passable, and then he works so fucking hard on this comic that by the time he hits the end of it, it's outrageously good. Other than that, honestly, I've just been trying to watch a lot of film, because I kind of envision all this like prelim shit to be, keyframes of film and things like that. So I'm trying to go through my letterbox queue.
Yeah, we have, I think, the way that we do all the composition for the comics, it's a lot more derived from film than comics, more often than not. That's why you see a lot of big panels and a lot of sequential sequences that go on for a lot of pages. I think of comics that way as well. I'm sure that somebody could take issue with that, but it's just the way that we like to work. We like to draw focus to like big scenes instead of squishing like 20 panels in one page. That's just how we like to do stuff.
Yeah, I
And
like it in the
actually,
face.
yeah, and
Sorry,
you
go on.
actually said that, and I forgot one comic that I have read recently. It's Homunculus by the same guy who did Itchy the Killer. For the similar reason why I was looking at the other ones, just obviously it's manga, so it's black and white, and he does a lot of his line work. It gets very good. At the beginning, I was like, this isn't that great, but it definitely got there eventually. And it's a similar also story, I guess. It's just it's this guy who kind of, through some weird medical procedures, kind of manages to look, how should I put this? I guess inside people's soul in a way.
He can see people's subconscious. He gets a hole drilled in his head, and then by covering one of his eyes, he could suddenly see the truth of somebody's subconscious. And I don't know if I'm wild about the story of Homunculus, but it's a bizarre premise.
I have some issues with it, but it's also a lot about like trauma and just kind of working through that and kind of getting out of control with the quote-unquote power that you have, which in his case is just looking at this deeply personal side of people and interpreting that on his own and within the limitations of his understanding of people and of his own issues that he definitely hasn't worked through.
And he has quite the limited understanding of people as well, which makes it interesting. It's kind of like he's trying to play therapist for people while at the same time like, bud, you are not a therapist, my friend.
Yeah, and the premise is very interesting. Again, took some issues with where the story went, but it's interesting. So I guess if you enjoyed Sad Sack and stuff like that, you might also be into that. I would recommend it, just to see.
But really read Itchy the Killer. That's the really good one. I'm trying to get RJ to read it. It's so good. It's good.
It's just very long. It's very long.
It's shorter than Homunculus. It's shorter than Homunculus.
Yeah, but I didn't finish Homunculus.
Yeah, that's true.
That's where I'm at.
Fair.
Cool. Yeah, so we can wrap it up there. You want to tell people where to find you online? And I'll put this in the show notes as well. But
like I said before, if you go to Meanboss Art on Twitter, all one sentence, you'll find out my links for everything, including the comics over there, my commission page, my portfolio. It's all on there. And you can also just shoot me a message for whatever reason if you want to say something.
And my Twitter is Booty Slime.
Yep.
You'll never forget it.
Yeah, and likewise, you can find all the comic links over there.
Oh, and if you want to check out everything we've been doing, I kind of have it all. I'm the webmaster of sort of the hub of where I put all our nonsense, which is sus.space. That's sus.space. That's me, that's RJ, and then that's also two of our friends, Gross Kelly and Haruspecs, who also do a shitload of really weird and interesting comics. So you can come check out our stuff.
Yeah, really you'll find everything there. All the links to the store, the projects that our friends do. If you just want an easy place to find everything, that's where you go.
If you got some free time and want to do some reading.
Oh yeah. A lot of fun little Easter eggs that you can find over there as well. So I recommend people clicking around if they're interested.
I'm very like 1990s web design with hidden shit. So watch the links.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on and keep up the good work.
Thanks so much for having us. Yeah, totally.
Thanks again for joining us for the first Trash Barrel Fireside Chat. If you want more Sewer Mutant content, check out the articles on sewermutant.com. If you liked this episode and want me to keep doing the podcast, please let me know. You can find my email and social media information on the website. The outro music is also by Crudler, and you can find more of his music at crudler.bandcamp.com. Now take it away.